My guest today told me that for as long as she can remember, she has known things without knowing how she knew them. As a kid, she thought everyone had it. It took her years to realize they did not. She also told me that her father was an alcoholic and that she got pregnant with someone who was also an alcoholic, and that it took her a full year of working on her own self-worth before she could leave him. If you have ever wondered why we walk straight back into the version of the pain we just escaped, this episode is for you. Because her gut knew first. It always does. And today we're talking about what it actually costs to keep overriding it. Welcome to the Comeback Show. I'm your host, Jen Fast, and this is the space where we talk honestly about the messy, beautiful, and sometimes painful process of rebuilding your life in midlife and beyond. If you've ever felt like you were becoming someone new but weren't quite sure who that person was yet, this show is for you. Today's guest is Jen McKillop. Yes, two Jens on this episode. Mine has two N's, hers has one, so you don't mix us up in the show notes. One N, Jen, is a master intuitive, a coach, the host of her own podcast called Awaken Your Path, a wife, a mother of 4 with a 5th on the way in September, and somebody who has spent the last 2 years going very deep into a craft she has actually been quietly practicing her whole life. She uses intuition to access the subconscious patterns and memories that get stuck in the body, traces them back to the age they started, and then pairs that energetic work with real-world, almost embarrassingly simple physical practices so that the change actually sticks. If you are already nodding, you will love this conversation. If you just rolled your eyes a little, even better. Jen drew a very firm line for me on our prep call between what she does and the woo-woo psychic version of this work. She is the grounded one. I am the science-curious skeptic. And what we'll end up talking about is something I think nearly every woman listening will recognize: the cost of not trusting yourself. Jen, welcome to the Comeback Show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Okay, so for the people meeting you for the first time, how would you introduce yourself to my audience in your own words?
I am Jen. I'm a mom of 4 and another one on the way, wild times. I am a master intuitive and I just really love to help women find their true core selves, find their past, remove all the outer noise, and just really live the life they came here to live.
Now, let's go all the way back to the beginning. You told me on our prep call that for as long as you can remember, you have known things without knowing how you knew them. Walk me through that. What are some of the earliest memories you have of it?
I remember specifically walking with a friend. It was in junior high. And I don't know why I remember this so specifically. And we were walking and she was complaining about a guy. And I just gave her advice and I was like, where did that come from? It was like I was hit with information and it just spewed out of my mouth. And she was like, what in the world? I was like, I have no idea. It just came out and I had to say it. So that was kind of really the first one that I really, really remember.
When did you realize that not everyone had that gift?
I would say later on, really like maybe my later 20s. I thought it was just a very normal thing. Also thought it was very normal for people to feel everyone's like emotions and it was overwhelming and I didn't understand why some people like didn't. I just thought it was common. Yeah.
What did you call it before you had language for it? And did you tell anyone or did you keep it private?
I would say before I had language, it was like trusting your gut. That was like my thing. My gut says this. I find myself saying that a lot. And I feel like I did tell people about it, but I didn't know what to call it. This is my Sagittarian side of me. I would just spew things out sometimes and be like, okay, maybe I should have kept that to myself. It's, then later on, I kept it a little more quiet, but yeah, that's kind of what it was.
So we're calling it intuition. For
Yes.
the listener right now who is wondering if she has intuition or is just making things up, how do you tell the two apart?
Okay, so Intuition basically is something that hits you fast and it hits you first. And a lot of times people question it because they sit there and ponder it and they manipulate it and change it in their mind with their emotions. And that's where they start to think they're making it up. So intuition literally is that first thing that hits you. And a lot of times people will have the hit. They don't do anything or say anything. And then something happens. They're like, I knew that. I'm like, yeah, that was your intuition telling you. You just doubted it.
So for a lot of people, that knowing shows up the loudest when the stakes are the highest, which brings us to the chapter of your life that changed everything. You grew up with a father who was an alcoholic, and then you got pregnant with someone who was also an alcoholic. From the outside, that might look like a pattern, but from the inside, what was it like for you?
From the inside, I really recognized it. So yes, my dad, the alcoholic, and then I was in a really dark place when my dad was alcoholic, trying to commit suicide, all the things. So then I found this person who was very fun, and we could go drinking on the weekends and we'd forget about everything because I was numbing out. And then I fell pregnant, and I fell into that chapter. As soon as I became mom, and I started to really recognize, holy crap, I am dating my father. This is who I'm dating. And it was really after having my first kid with him that the awareness picked up.
Speaking of that awareness, what did your gut try to tell you about that relationship before you let yourself hear it? And how long was that whisper there?
Oh, great question. It was there for a very long time. We never got married. I always knew I was never going to stay with him long term, but I lost a lot of self-worth, the sabotaging, the mind games, all the stuff that goes on. And my gut was always saying, this is not right. But then my bleeding heart and wanting to fix everyone and everything was like, we can fix this. So I was with him for 7 years. We had 2 kids. I would say probably after having my daughter, when she was about 1, I knew that this wasn't going to last, but clearly I stayed longer than that.
You said you actually took a full year of working on your own self-worth before you left. What did that year look like for you? And what did you have to do to become the version of you who could walk out?
I remember specifically, it was in 2018. We were driving to a book signing with actually his sister and my brother-in-law. And he wasn't there. We were driving to this book signing. And they're like, oh, how's your growth going? And I was like, I feel like I'm stuck because if I grow more, like the relationship's gone. And that right there, when I said that out loud, I was like, oh my God, like I am stuck. So that year, there was a lot of drinking, a lot of just like really connecting to myself. And I met with a shaman. This is the first time I ever met with a shaman. And she cracked me open, and she helped me for a year really work on finding my worth. I don't have to put my worth in a failed relationship. That doesn't disqualify my worth, and that I do deserve more. I remember one of the big questions was I asked myself, is this how I want to spend the rest of my life? And that was a big no. And that was a big wake up sign for me. And people who are in these relationships and who get stuck, you don't have to leave right away. It's so scary and it's a lot, especially when you have kids. Like you think, I can't leave right away. And no, more than likely you can't, because there's so financial, there's a lot that goes into it. And I say work until you're ready, until you're not going to regret it.
That's great advice. 6 months after you left, you met your now husband, and you describe him as polar opposite. But what changed inside you that made him recognizable as a safe place?
What changed in me again was really recognizing my worth, what I have to offer, and what I'm looking for that's a non-negotiable. And before, in previous relationships, we say non-negotiable, and then in the beginning you're in love and the flags get thrown out the window, right? Like everything's thrown out the window. I wrote down 20 qualities I was looking for and that I wanted. And I said, every box has to be checked before it could happen. And I was not expecting to meet anyone. I was fine, being single and just really working on me and the kids. And he just came out of nowhere. But I think it's because the energetics I put in myself and what I was looking for.
The thing that I want to name out loud for the audience is that you and I have a version of this in common, actually.
Yes.
My current husband, who is my third, is 20 plus years sober, but there are still echoes even after that long. We came very close to divorce last year. So when you talk about the body remembering the pattern, I am nodding hard. And when you talk about the red flags versus the green flags, he would hand me a bouquet of red flags and I'd go, ooh, flowers,
Right.
Right?
Yes.
But then there is this chapter after you do leave, because the pattern does not always end when the relationship does. You mentioned co-parenting with your ex, and that this past year, you and his current wife actually went from a really difficult relationship to actually mending it. That sounds like a story where intuition catches up with forgiveness. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So with my current husband, we started dating. We got pregnant pretty fast, like 6 months in. It was a story of like, It was wild. And we got pregnant. So he started dating someone, and I am all like, great, I want to meet her. Let's be friends. Like, I want this to be very cohesive. And in the beginning, we did. We got together. We were friends. Like, her daughter would come around. I invited her to my new sister-in-law's house. My ex-sister-in-law was there. It was like a crazy, I'm like, whatever, we can all be friends. And then it started to become, there was little things that happened. And her and I, we could talk about this because we've talked about it. She would try to keep the kids more. And then I had more custody because we homeschooled. And then she filled out all the paperwork to take me to court to get him 50-50. And that was wrecking because he worked. It wasn't 50-50 for him. It was so she could have them. This just little stuff kept happening and happening. And then, they baptized the kids without my permission. They got my daughter's ears pierced. It became years of like, my nervous system was shot, arguing and doing this, like even to the point the day before one of our court dates, they called CPS on our household to use that in court. Oh my God. So I was just wrecked. And I remember it was about a year ago. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't fight it. I can't do this anymore. I just let it go. And I said, people are not going to understand. This is where my intuition came in, because I was listening to the outside noise. I was listening to everyone was like, you should fight them. You should do this, hold this against them. And I was like, it was killing me, like killing me. And my intuition was screaming like, this is not the way. So nobody understood. And I was like, forget it. So I messaged him first and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, let's just try to work it out. Him and I got on a path, and he actually left her. So he left her, and it was like a 5-week span, and him and I were fine. We were able to talk to each other in public, because before at events, he wouldn't even speak to me. He wouldn't look at me, like nothing. So we were able to talk to each other. Our relationship was mending, and then it was August of last year. Her and I still had not really talked. They got back together. August of last year, he showed up drunk to my son's football game. I did not know he was drinking again. He took a break for a couple years, had no idea he was drinking again, and she messaged me. And her and I hadn't talked in years. And she said, he's drunk, he can't drive. Like, could you please do what you need to? And most people didn't understand this decision I made as well. I said, okay, I could just let him drive and call the cops and let him get arrested, right? Like, I tried to go get the keys. He wouldn't give them to me. I ended up calling the cops just so he wouldn't get in the parking lot with all these kids and drive. But my parents ended up driving him home. And since then, her and I reconnected. I forgave a lot of stuff because I don't think she saw where I was coming from. And now she saw that side of him and she fully understood where I was coming from with all of this. And this might sound very woo-woo. So we have past lives. And usually the people in our lives were related to us in the past. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to figure out who she was in my past life, because a lot of times people come here to play the difficult role in your life. This is what switched everything for me. They love you so much, their soul chose to come play that difficult part in your life so you can grow and learn. So I said, okay, who was she to me? And I found out she was like a sister. And that flipped everything for me. I just said, okay, I know she loves me so much and she's trying to teach me something. If someone in your life is being difficult, they're trying to wake you up to something. And if you're not listening, it's going to get worse. But the minute you start listening and becoming aware, using your intuition to say, what are they trying to teach me? What is it? And I really saw it. And that's how her and I were able to mend the relationship. And now we talk like every day. So it's kind of a wild story.
When you talk about like figuring out that she was a sister to you, how do you figure that out? Is it just a matter of listening to yourself?
This would be a good conversation about the psychics and the intuitions and the mediums. So a lot of people go to psychics, but they're not necessarily trained. They'll just ask questions, and you have different fields, right? You have your body, you can connect to your body. You have your electromagnetic field, you can connect there. You can connect to your thoughts. You can connect to your emotions. So with intuition, I have trained where to go to ask the question. Our higher selves is the most realized version of us. It's the person who knows our path and knows where we're supposed to be going in this lifetime. We often ignore her, but you can just start doing this. That's my biggest thing is people overthink intuition. Just do it. You have nothing to lose, right? You know, I choose to connect to higher self. Who was she in my past? And I just got an answer and I just went with it. And that's kind of how you start to do that.
For the listener who is in the middle of one of these kinds of conflicts right now and cannot tell, should she release this relationship or try to rebuild it? How do you actually know which one your gut or your intuition is pointing at?
Okay, that's a great question. The biggest thing I can give advice about the relationships and your gut and your intuition, you don't want to leave a relationship when it's at its worst, because you're just going to carry those problems into the next relationship. You haven't solved them. You haven't figured out the lessons you're supposed to learn in this relationship so you can move on to the next relationship and it be different. All the people in relationships, it's like, same issue with this one, same issue with this one. They never are learning the lesson. So the biggest thing you can ask yourself is, how many more lessons do I need to learn to be able to leave this relationship? And that's huge.
It is huge. You actually just described the process that my husband and I went through to reconcile a year ago without me actually being aware of it until just now. I do remember that we had each both done our own like inner work with our own therapists and before coming back together for that last piece of paperwork that if we signed it, we were done. We were that close. Yeah. And what we came to realize and talk about was that we didn't actually want the relationship to end. We wanted the fighting to end. Big difference, yes. Right? But yes. That the common denominator in all our failed relationships was us, each of us. And so we had a choice to either learn the lessons, like you said, of this relationship and the patterns from the past, and then use it to fix this relationship rather than moving on to something else and saying, oh, I'll fix it then. Why not fix it now? And that's kind of how we landed at that. So I feel that. The phrase that I keep coming back to from our last call is the gut knew first. Can you give me another example from your life, even a small one, where your body or your knowing tried to tell you something well before your mind caught up to it?
Yes, I have a big one. This was actually kind of before I started training intuition, but it was like strong. There was a course. It was a very pricey course, like $8,000. And it was to sell products on Amazon, to learn how to create a product, to sell the product on Amazon. And at that time in my life, I was always looking for a way to have residual income like everyone else, right? And I was a big sucker. I have big dreams. So I'm like, I can do this. I'm a dreamer. And I got on a call with the lady, a sales call. The minute I got off, my gut literally was yelling, absolutely not. No, do not do this. Like, absolutely not. And my husband, who's always on board with, he's a dreamer too. I'd be like, I want to do this. He'd be like, okay. Like, he even was like, this is going to be more than what they're saying. He said that. And I did not listen. I signed up. I signed up. And within 2 months, I was like, damn it. My gut was right. Like, this is not for me. So that was like another one where I completely ignored it, and it was right in the end.
Okay, so this is the part where I want to put on my skeptic hat a little bit because I think a lot of my audience may kind of be right there with me. Full disclosure for the audience, I am the science nerdy, recovering from a corporate job in biotech, wants the receipts kind of person. So make the case for me. What is intuition in your framing, and what is it not?
So intuition, what is not, is guessing. Because I think that's what a lot of people think. Oh, they're making it up, right? So what is intuition? It's energy. Everything starts as energy and then develops into matter. Even if you think about it, when someone goes to get an MRI, what are they looking at? They're looking at light versus dark in the MRI. I am reading the energy field. And I feel like one of the more common ones we hear is the electromagnetic field, because that's what they're reading when you do the cancer stuff. This blew my mind and changed everything for me. It's a script. How you talk to yourself, how you're being toward yourself. Anytime anyone steps into that energy field, we all produce the energy. Anytime someone steps into it, your field hands them a script and says, this is how I treat myself, so I need you to reflect it back to me. Have you ever been around someone and you like them and you're like, I like them, they're a good person, but when you're around them, you're very hard on them. And then you leave their field and you're like, why was I so hard? Why am I so mean to them? Like, I don't get it. Like, I like them, I want to be kind, but anytime I'm around them, I'm very mean to them. I'm very hard on them. That is the script in their energy field. They're very hard on themselves. They're critical. So that's the script they're handing to you to play back to them. Intuition is reading the energy field, and everything is made of energy and light. And that's the sciencey part of it. A lot of people, like the psychics and the mediums, they guess. They have no idea where they're going, right? I've sat and I've trained my intuition for 10,000 plus hours going to different fields. I know how to check my emotions because you can emotionally manipulate, right? So if your emotions are high, asking a question, you can manipulate it. So it's just really about training it, using the energy and light of where to go.
You mentioned the difference between what you do and a psychic or a medium. Where is that line, and why does the distinction matter so much to you?
It matters to me because a lot of psychics and mediums, they just ask questions and it's being thrown out everywhere. And it could be incorrect coming back. And then they give the person this information and the person heavily relies on it. They're like, well, this is what they said, and this is when they said it's going to happen, and it didn't happen. And that's like a huge thing for me. And even using intuition, I tell people, I can give you a timeline, but it can shift. because tomorrow you could wake up and you change energetically. You change how you think. You're working on your self-worth. You're working on your self-image, your self-love. You've just changed your energy, which then changes your timeline. So what I give you can shift. And for me, that's important to tell people, because I think, they heavily rely and trust the information, but it can shift. So I think that's a big part for me.
So it sounds like you're not predicting the future, you're reading energy. And I understand that can change from minute to minute. That makes sense to me, actually. For the skeptics in our audience, can you give them an experiment they can run on themselves this week? Something low stakes that will either prove or disprove what you're talking about.
Ooh, I love that's fun. Okay. Low stakes, just start with everyday things. Sit there and don't overthink it. If you start to feel you're manipulating or think about it too much, walk away. Go do something else, right? Go do something else and come back. Just start with, okay, body, should we have eggs or waffles this morning? See what you get, right? And there's the different forms of intuition. You could close your eyes, say, I'm going to pick a color. I'm going to close my eyes. Should I have eggs this morning? I'm going to open my eyes. I see green. Okay, green means yes. Great. I'm going to have eggs this morning. And just with that, like the simplest things is the fun way to start to test this. And if you really want to test it, do the opposite. Go a week with doing the opposite of what your intuition is. And that will be a big tell for you, being like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I do trust the intuition.
I did something similar with a major decision in my life. It's a good thing I listened. Everyone knows I left my corporate job suddenly 9 months ago, and just walked out and left with no plan, no money saved.
I love it.
Before that happened, though, I had a last straw moment at work that led me to think, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And I went home and about it with my family to try to get input on what do I do now? And they all told me, leave. Walk away. You don't have to go back there if you don't want to. I'd never considered that was even a possibility. And I had to sit there and think, can I do that? And what really decided it for me was a little practice that my therapist has actually had me do a few times in my life with decisions. And that is to sit there and think, okay, I've made the decision. I'm not going to go back there when work opens on Monday or Tuesday. How do I feel? And I instantly felt lighter, like I had lost 200 pounds. I felt hopeful. I felt so happy, so relieved. But then I sat there and had the opposite. I said, okay, I'm going back to work as normal on Monday or Tuesday. How do I feel? And the dread settled on me immediately. I felt like I wanted to cry, honestly. And when I told my husband that, he said, you can't go back.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I didn't. I put in my notice the very next day.
That's amazing. So you did it without even knowing you were doing it. You listened to your true self and what you wanted, not what the outside world wanted for you.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So once you start trusting the signals that you're hearing in your own intuition, the next question is always, okay, but where is that signal coming from? And your answer to this is one of my favorite parts of your work. The piece of your work I really want listeners to hear today is the body piece. You jump into the subconscious memories that are stuck in the body and then trace them back to the age that pattern started. Can you give us a layperson version of this? What are you actually doing when you do that?
Yes. Okay. So as a young kid, right? This usually it's before the age of 7. We take on our parents' beliefs, our friends, because we're like a sponge. We're absorbing everything. We don't really have our own true thoughts yet. So our parents could tell us that, you're being too much, calm down, we need to fit in line, right? So your parents have put this thought on you. And now it's become your own. And it wasn't yours to begin with. So it's become your own. It's in your subconscious. So our subconscious runs 90% of our day, 90%. So now this is stuck and it cycles throughout your life in different situations. So say in your 20s, you get a job and you don't really like it. It's not really aligned with you. And then your boss is always mean to you, but you can't speak up. You stay in line, you stay in the box. Then it keeps happening, cycling, but you're not essentially listening. And this is when sometimes your body comes around, right? Your body comes around to wake you up. It's unfortunate, but you're given little signs that you're off path, that you're running through your subconscious, not your actual true self. You're running on these your parents' beliefs, not yours. And then your body will start to wake you up. You'll start to get headaches. Okay, I'm being very critical and hard on myself. I'm getting a headache, but that's your body being like, hello, love yourself. Like, stop being mean to yourself. You do not have to be, you're doing fine. But we don't think of it like that. Then we go pop the Tylenol, right? Okay, we're fine. But then we keep going. And then another situation happens in a relationship. So it's like all different areas of your life, the same pattern keeps running. And what I do is I go in and I say, hey, this was from the age of 4. I can pinpoint if it was a teacher or a friend or wherever it came from. I'm like, this is not yours. This is someone's belief they put on you, and we have to release it. So that's kind of where we pin really letting go of all the crap people put on you, because it's a lot.
It is a lot, yeah. You said something on our last call that I wanted to underline for the ADHD listeners in my audience, including me. You said you keep your work simple on purpose because complicated equals abandoned. What does that mean, and why does that matter so much in your work specifically?
I have ADHD too. I get it. If we're given 10 things to do, we're never going to do it, right? We may start one and we're off in another land doing the dishes. Like, it just is what it is. And people have fast-paced lives right now. They're not ready for overwhelm. And then when you get the overwhelm, you really do nothing. And then you think you suck because you never can complete a task. So in my work, I give 1 to 2 things to work on, and that is it. And when you nail that, then we can move on to the next, right? I think of it as like 7 pots. If I'm watering all 7 at the same time, it's going to take forever for them to all fill up. If I'm watering 1 pot, it's going to fill it up very fast, and I'm going to feel very complete because I filled it up instead of taking years to fill up 7. So that's kind of how I think of it. We're going to do 1 to 2 things so that way you feel confident that you nailed it and are ready to move on to the next one, because or else you're going to be stuck in that same pattern because you just can't get it.
I have never thought of it that way. It kind of makes sense when you hear the term, you can't pour from an empty cup. That must be where that comes from. Yes. Amazing. Yes. Okay, so then there's the bigger question, the one that brings us to the heart of why this show even exists. A lot of my audience is in midlife. A lot of them are in the middle of reinventing themselves, and they cannot quite name what is happening to them. From where you sit, what are the body and the intuition trying to tell us when the old version stops working for us?
This is the true core self that comes in. One of my favorite topics. You need to ask, was I doing all that stuff for other people? Or was it aligned with my soul? Because a lot of times it's a very rare thing that people do from a young age. I think it's shifting. I think it's shifting now for the kids, for us who are having kids. But I think from a young age, we just lived what other people told us to do. And now we get to, your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, and you're like, I'm not happy. Like, yes, my life is fine. It's okay. I could pay my bills, but I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. That's because you were living a life that everyone else told you should live. So really start asking yourself, is this what my soul actually wants? Is a great question to start there.
From your practice, what are the signals that you watch for in clients that tell you the identity is the issue, not the circumstances that person's in?
I ask questions. If they are in a same cycle or a pattern, and I'll be like, is that what you want? Or is that an old thing that you think you thought you wanted? And asking them that will tell me so much. Recently in a session, I asked someone, I was like, what is it that you really want? And she couldn't answer. She's like, I have no idea. And that to me right there was a signal that so much has been put on her. She's lost her true identity, her true insides.
Yeah, I see that all the time in the people that
Yeah.
I work with and coach too. When I think about the 2-year deep dive you took into your craft, that in itself was a reinvention. What did you have to let go of to become the version of you who can do this work publicly now?
I feel like I've kind of always done it publicly, but I never used the word intuition before. What hit me is someone said, if you don't put yourself out there, she said, people are waiting for you. They can't change until you step up. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay. So people's lives are on hold until I take that next step. And that kind of was like, okay, I'm ready. And what does it really matter? Maybe people think you're crazy in the beginning. That's anyone who's made anything big. They think you're crazy in the beginning until you do it and they say, okay, well, hold on a minute. Wait, let me ask you questions. And you just have to be brave enough and truly know your mission that it doesn't even matter what people are saying. Because then there'll be that one person that comes in and says, thank you. Like, if you didn't say this, I would have never. And that's worth it to me right there.
Yeah, actually, I've lived this too. And so many of the women that I work with are in the middle of trying to build something, whether it's a business or some other project that's really important to them. Very often involves sales and selling because you got to earn money some way, right?
Yes,
Unfortunately.
yes.
But we all like cringe at the thought of trying to
Yeah.
sell to someone. But the way to think about it, kind of like you did, is someone out there needs the help that I'm giving them. And by not reaching out and making myself known and telling them I'm here, I can't help them. They're going to stay stuck. So when you think about it that way, and rather than thinking of it as doing sales, I think that really helps refocus you and encourage you to keep going.
Yeah. Another thing with I'll add in is that, because same as I'm sure you did this too, and everyone on here has given away so much information for free because we just want to help. But, and even too for you, if you've gotten free advice, like what do you pay attention more? You've spent $500. Are you paying attention in doing that advice? Are you paying attention to the free advice someone gave you? More than likely the $500. So if they pay attention is like another thing if you really want to change their life.
If they pay attention. I'm going to quote you
Yes.
on that. Amazing. So, for the woman who feels something shifting underneath her but cannot tell yet what is on the other side, what do you think she needs to hear?
Oh, great question. I would say she needs to hear that it's okay to let go of the control of not knowing what's on the other side and truly trusting that your higher self, and whether you use God or source, they know the plan, and that's enough. And if you follow their plan, it's going to be a life that you can't even imagine, instead of you trying to control every step of the way. Because what if it can be better than what you're trying to control?
Yes, I've actually said this myself. You don't have to see the whole path or the whole staircase. Just take the first step because clarity
Yes.
comes from action, not the other way around. Love that.
Yes.
Let's
Yes.
give the audience some of the practical stuff. Like, I would love it if you could walk us through some of your favorite small daily practices. You mentioned kind of journaling, the shoulder roll when anxiety hits, the reframe at the end of a hard conversation. What would be in that starter kit?
I would say the starter kit is first start to pay attention. Really start to pay attention what you're feeling in your body, what is happening. I was on morning routines and I was off morning routines, and I'm back on the morning routine, and I find that's a great place to start, to be quiet and like connect yourself. And let's just say you kind of wake up and you're stiff, right? You're really stiff. That means you are holding on to so much that does not belong to you. So if you're really stiff, the best way for the body is movement. So I would just sit there and I would just shake. I'd be like, please just release anything that is not mine. Just leave my body now. It does not belong to me. And it doesn't have to look a certain way. Just do whatever feels best to you. It could be like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just need to do it. And that's, you got to let go. Walk yourself in a room. So if people are around, like, I know you might feel subconscious if someone's watching you, but go in a room, go in the bathroom and lock the door and just do whatever feels like needs to be done for your body. So that's a really big one. Checking in with yourself halfway through the day is something I kind of like to do. Okay, I've been doing a lot. I've been going. Is there something I need right now? Okay, I haven't eaten. Let me eat. This is taking care of yourself, right? The little things. Okay, I need to drink a little more water. Maybe I need a 5-minute, like, shutting my eyes and just breathing break, like really checking in. And then at the end of the day too, I always like to say, did I take on anyone's energy that's not mine? Because we tend to do that. And you don't want to go to bed with that. You do not want to go to bed with other people's energy and problems. So here you can either journal or you can just kind of, say it in your head, anything that's not mine, doesn't belong to me, I choose to release it now. And again, I always am in the body. I'm like shaking because you got to get it out of your body. It can be in your mind, get it out of your mind, but you also have to get it out of your body. So those are just kind of simple actions you could easily do throughout the day.
The next step, the intuition course you just created. What made you build it and who is it for?
What made me build it was that I want to be able to help people, but the only way is they need to develop intuition. I don't want to have someone always relying on me. My goal is that I help you and I send you on your way. I don't want to have to, like, the only way you get your questions answered is we have to have a session. I want you to have that in your pocket. That's the biggest thing in starting to trust yourself. Yes, I'll be there to collaborate in next steps and all of that, but I want you to be able to really start to rely and trust on yourself instead of everyone else around you. So that's kind of what made me create this intuition course.
For the listener who is in the gap right now, who can feel something is off but can't name it yet, who is exhausted, trying to think her way out of something her body has already decided, what do you want her to hear?
Okay, I love to call this the freeze state because I was in it as well at one point. And the biggest thing you can do is don't rush it. I think a lot of people try to do 100 things, like, don't rush it. First, you need to take those calm moments for yourself and really try to relax the body and give yourself permission just to be. That's my biggest advice for someone who's in that in between. You cannot force it to happen. You just have to first have your body feel like it's safe enough for the next step to appear.
That's good advice. What are you most excited about in your work right now?
I'm just most excited about helping people really uncover who they are on the inside and really releasing a lot of stuff and really seeing that you can really fix anything in your life. Any health thing, any relationship thing, like, you're not stuck and you don't have to accept that, and there's a solution to it.
I'm sure by now listeners are wanting to figure out, how can I find Jenn online? How do I work with her? Can you tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. It's just jen.mckillop. I'm also on Threads too. And then my website is jenmckillop.com. Very simple. Also, you could email me, info@jenmckillop.com. Any of those places I'm really connected into. Feel free to send me a message on Instagram. I love that. I love to connect and just chat there as well.
I will make sure all those links are in the show notes for everyone. Before we close, I always ask the same question of all my guests, and it is this. If our listeners can walk away with only one message from this whole conversation, what do you hope that is?
I hope it is that you can really start to begin to trust yourself and what you have on the inside, and you don't need the outside world to tell you what you like.
Thank you for being so generous with your time and your heart today. For our listeners, you can find her at jenmckillop.com, where you can get on the wait list for her brand new Intuition Level 1 course. And if you like the way she shows up on the mic as much as I did, go subscribe to her podcast, Awaken Your Path, for short form episodes on inner healing and following your path. All of those links will be in the show notes. If today's episode landed with you, make sure that you're subscribed and then share it with the friend you thought of while you were listening. That is how the show grows. And if you're sitting in your own version of the slow boil right now, listening to this conversation and recognizing yourself a little too clearly, I have a bunch of resources for you on my website, which is reinventionwithjenfast.com. Thanks for spending this time with us. I'm Jen Fast, and I'll see you next time on The Comeback Show.